Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Harshil. I'm one of the cardiology registrars at the Leicester Hospital. And I've been asked to give this talk on ECG screening for sudden cardiac death in young athletes. So it's a topic that's close to my heart. It's dedicated the last 3 years to ECG screening in young athletes. So I'm quite passionate about it. And for this talk, it's important I get to know your background so I can tailor it accordingly. Can I just ask, any medics in the room? Yeah. What medics? A&E reg. Any nurses?
We're all techs at Glenford.
What?
We're cardiac techs at Glenford.
At the Glenford, okay. So, also all of you familiar with the ECG? You see a lot of the ECG as techs and in ED in every single patient. It's fine. So that's good. So, of course, if there's at any point if there's something you don't understand, just stop me. So, for the purpose of this talk, I think it would be convenient to divide the talk up into different stages and sort of properties of a screening test as recommended by the World Health Organization. So, looking at the conditions which we're looking for, the treatment which is available, the screening test itself, and what's currently out there in terms of policy. So for any condition to be screened for, it should be an important public health problem. So for example, currently in the United Kingdom, the conditions which are being screened for are breast cancer, cervical cancer, colon cancer, and abdominal aneurysm. So the main condition. Prostate cancer is not currently screened for in the NHS. So it's important to see if sudden death in young athletes is an important public problem that warrants all this attention. Sudden death in a young athlete is a tragic and highly emotional event. So apart from the devastation within the family unit, such deaths at a young age have a lasting impact on friends, families, and the wider medical and scientific communities. Studies reporting the incidence of sudden cardiac death varies significantly from 1 in 33,000 to 1 in 164,000. You may ask why such variation in reported figures, but the reason for this is the studies are very different in terms of their methodology. For example, some studies rely purely on insurance claims and newspaper reports for cases of sudden cardiac death, whereas other studies have relied on a robust mandatory reporting system of all deaths. Studies also differ in what they define as an athlete, and also differ in the inclusion or exclusion of survivors of sudden cardiac arrest in their reports. Overall, an incidence of 1 in 50,000 young athletes is generally the accepted incidence of young sudden cardiac death. Although the incidence of sudden cardiac death is fortunately low in athletes, hereditary and congenital abnormalities of the heart are the leading non-accidental causes of sudden death in young athletes. They are significantly higher than suicide, poisoning, substance abuse, and homicide, which are other important causes of sudden death in young athletes. Cardiac disease is completely out, is significantly higher than those conditions. Therefore, prevention of these tragedies has become an important focus of the medical community, either through primary prevention with screening, or as you heard today, effective secondary prevention with early defibrillation and CPR. You've already heard today that there have been fantastic efforts to try and improve facilities for cardiopulmonary resuscitation and AEDs, which have undoubted efficacy in saving lives. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And one might, genuinely question what is the point of screening when we should try to use our resources to improve facilities for CPR. However, in young people, it's important to note that the vast majority of deaths, nearly 65%, occur in the home, of which nearly 40% occur during sleep. Such deaths are unlikely to be prevented by increasing availability of defibrillators in schools, in parks, in malls, hotels, gyms, etc. These findings suggest that maybe early identification of athletes who may be at risk of sudden cardiac death may be important, rather than purely just putting all the money into defibrillators. When we look at the demographics of young athletic sudden death, males are more prone to sudden death than females. We really don't know the reason why this is the case. It's been speculated that males participate in more demanding sport than females, although that's changing. A lot more females are participating in sport of really high endurance. More than a third of cases of sudden death in athletes occur under the age of 17 and a half years. And if you think that these individuals, if they were identified, could go on to live a normal life expectancy, we're looking at at least 55 to 60 years of loss of life. Athletes of Afro-Caribbean origin are at higher risk of sudden death than white athletes, largely because they have a higher prevalence of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And interestingly, sports with high dynamic and low isometric requirements, or the stop-start sports, such as basketball and football, basketball in the United States, football in Europe, are at higher risk of sudden cardiac death. So, profile, do you think it's debatable whether how important sudden death in young athletes is as a public health problem? For conditions that we screen for, it's really important to have a recognizable latent stage of disease that we can pick patients up at and understand the natural history, so that if we identify someone at an early stage, we know what's going to happen in the later on, and we can sort of intervene in there for a positive outcome. For that, it's important to understand the causes of sudden death in young athletes. Such deaths are very, very significant, but can be conveniently divided into structural causes, electrical causes, and acquired causes. So the structural causes of sudden death include hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, ARVC, or the congenital coronary anomalies. The electrical causes are when the heart is normal at post-mortem or from any imaging if the athlete is alive, and are commonly due to the ion channelopathy, such as long QT syndrome, Brugada syndrome, CPVT, or the congenital accessory pathways. There are some important acquired causes of sudden cardiac death in young athletes, such as infection like myocarditis, trauma, which is commotion-coded, where commonly seen in American sports such as baseball, where the ball hits the heart at high velocity and causes an ROT phenomenon. So it affects the heart electrically, and the heart is actually normal structure at post-mortem. Of course, in today's world of trying to achieve great things in sport, there's a high level of illicit substance and performance-enhancing drugs, which can also cause sudden cardiac death. The causes of sudden death in athletes, in terms of the sheer numbers and what's the most important, and varies from country to country. So, for example, in the United States, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death in young athletes. For those of you not familiar with echocardiography, this is the left ventricle, left atrium, aorta, right ventricle. And this is the septum, which is in between the left ventricle and the right ventricle. And you can see that the septum is really thick. That's characteristic of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. In Italy, because of there's a unique genetic pool, especially in the north of Italy. Arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy is the leading cause of sudden death. And again, in this condition, this is the left atrium, left ventricle, right atrium, the right ventricle. Normally, the left ventricle is at least twice the size of the right ventricle, but in this condition, the right ventricle is significantly more dilated than the left ventricle. Recent data from a specialized cardiac center in London have shown actually that in 40% of cases, the heart is normal at post-mortem. When toxicology is also negative, these deaths are commonly attributed to the ion channel conditions such as long QT syndrome, Brugada syndrome, CPVT, or the congenital accessory pathways. That's important to know that in 40% of cases, the heart will be normal at post-mortem. Unfortunately, all these conditions have a very poorly understood natural history. They're very variable and have very low event rates, so it's possible that we will never completely understand the natural history. There have been efforts made to try and sort of risk stratify individuals diagnosed with disease at an early stage to possibly improve their long-term outcome. The European Society of Cardiology has given us the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy risk calculator, where we take into account the patient's personal and family history and imaging results to calculate the risk of sudden cardiac death. The ECG itself may have some risk stratification properties. For example, a QT interval of more than 500 milliseconds, or the presence of the Brugada type 1 pattern, which you've seen earlier this morning with a cove-shaped escalation in leads V1 to V2, independently confer a higher risk for patients with long QT syndrome and Bukhari syndrome respectively. For athletes diagnosed with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, even if they're asymptomatic, one can consider electrophysiological studies to try and ascertain the risk of sudden cardiac death, although this is really controversial and it's not routinely accepted. For any condition to be screened for, it's important that there's some treatment, effective treatment in place at an early stage that would improve the long-term outcome. Whether early detection of disease saves lives is a contentious issue. Certainly the most persuasive evidence supporting that early detection of disease saves lives comes from Italy, where ECG screening of athletes is mandatory by law. In fact, you can't get a gym membership in Italy without an ECG and a sign-off from your sports doctor, your GP, or your cardiologist. This study in Italy reported that over a 25-year period, there was an 89% reduction in the incidence of sudden cardiac death in athletes screened with ECG in that time. At the same time, the incidence of sudden cardiac death in the non-athletic general population did not change. It's based purely on this study that ECG screening has actually come to the forefront. I already mentioned this morning that the majority of conditions that cause sudden death cannot be treated, and certainly therapy is aimed at reducing the risk of sudden cardiac arrest in individuals with these diseases. For example, we can offer some lifestyle modification, which may include disqualification from competitive sport. We can offer medication for antiarrhythmic drugs and also more invasive treatments such as radiofrequency ablation. And finally, for those who are considered to be at high risk, we can consider an ICD. However, as I've said, these conditions cannot be treated other than Wolff-Parkinson-White, where ablation can treat the condition. The most controversial of these treatments is disqualification from competitive sport. Really controversial, and so does lead us to question, what the athlete's autonomy and, human rights. And these are all issues which do come into play. There are recommendations in place for classification of competitive sport for athletes with cardiovascular disease. These largely depend on the type of sport, the type of disease, and the absence or presence of symptoms. Overall, athletes with these conditions are generally excluded from all competitive sport other than sport which have low intensity, such as golf, bowling, and cricket. These are American guidelines. They think cricket is a low intensity sport. I would disagree. The American guidelines are much more liberal, and whereas the European guidelines are really strict. Even individuals who just have a genetic diagnosis of the condition based on the family history, but who do not have the phenotype of the condition, are excluded from competitive sports. In Europe, it's really strict. Whereas Americans would allow participation in competitive sport for individuals who have the gene but do not have the phenotype of the condition. It's really important to know that all these guidelines are consensus-based. There is very little evidence base for these guidelines. And in the UK, for example, we don't disqualify athletes with conditions. We can provide recommendations based on these guidelines, but there are Premiership footballers playing with these conditions at the moment. It's very difficult. It's a question of livelihood. If they don't have anything else to fall back on, this is all they've got. Often they will say, "Sorry, doctor, I'm not going to stop playing sport. This is what I'm going to keep doing." And it's understandable. But then in those situations, efforts should be made to let the club doctors make sure there's a defibrillator wherever they play sport. For example, there was a Premiership footballer who was diagnosed with this condition about 4 years ago. One of his conditions was told not to play sport. He said, "Look, I'm a goalkeeper. I've got 4 more years left at the top. I'm going to take my chances." He played in the UK. It was fine. He was followed up every year. It was considered low risk. As soon as he moved to Italy, he got disqualified. There was no, the doctor, because in Italy to play sport you have to be signed off as this person is fit to play sport. We don't have that in the UK. We don't have a yes can play, yes can, or no can't play policy. So it just shows from country to country things different. What about the ECG as a screening test itself? Of course, like any test, it should be acceptable to the population being screened. And certainly, there is no evidence that screening with ECG deters athletes from competitive sport. On the contrary, athletes screened with ECG are more likely to be satisfied with their screening, feel safer during competition, support that all athletes should be screened, and actually state that screening had a positive impact on their training. So athletes certainly do support ECG screening. How valid is the ECG as a screening test? So the ECG is certainly much more sensitive than history and physical examination in identifying athletes with these conditions. In a large study of more than 40,000 athletes, the ECG is 5 times more likely than personal and family history and 10 times more likely than physical examination to identify athletes with these serious cardiac conditions. This is not surprising because in 95% of cases with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the ECG will be abnormal. Similarly, 80% of athletes with ARVC, the ECG will be abnormal. However, the ECG will not identify every single person harboring a serious cardiac condition. You already heard about CPVT today, which is a condition which is symptomatic where individuals suffer syncope or sudden cardiac arrest during exercise. In this condition, the ECG is characteristically normal at rest. The ECG changes only come on during exercise. Similarly, coronary artery anomalies, where the coronary arteries have an abnormal origin, normally do not have ECG abnormalities at rest. And it's highly likely that such individuals will be missed from any ECG screening program, or rather will not be detected. Individuals who participate in regular exercise develop a constellation of electrical, structural and functional changes, all aimed at improving cardiac output so that they are able to remain competitive. On occasion, these adaptations result in ECG changes that overlap with ECG changes seen in patients with cardiac disease. This is particularly so for younger athletes, male athletes, Afro-Caribbean athletes, and athletes participating in high endurance sport. Unfortunately, this results in a grey zone and therefore does raise potential for false positive ECGs. By false positive ECGs, I mean ECGs which are abnormal but further investigations are completely normal. So this is just we'll look at these are just 3 Afro-Caribbean athletes, male athletes, all asymptomatic, none have a family history of cardiac disease and are pitched up for screening. So just because it's a small audience, it'd be nice to get a show of hands as who thinks things are normal or abnormal. So are you able to see the ECG, guys? So what about the first one, the rugby player at the top there? Is that a normal or an abnormal ECG for that athlete? I won't expect everyone to get it, but it's interesting to see if this guy pitches up for an ECG at Glenfield or at ED, what we need to think. He's asymptomatic, completely asymptomatic. Is that normal or abnormal? First ECG. Sorry? Anyone for normal? No one for normal. Anyone for abnormal? So it looks like the majority is abnormal. You're right. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, we can see that there is an element of ST depression with V2. Can you see that? Or is that generally ST depression is never normal in an athlete. Never normal. Secondly, there's T-wave inversions going all the way to V5 as well. Even in Afro-Caribbean athletes, T-wave if the T-wave inversion goes beyond V4, that should always be abnormal. And lastly, a very subtle change, which can almost be missed because we see these T-wave inversions, is look at the QRS voltages. This is a young, fit Afro-Caribbean athlete. You've seen some individuals of Afro-Caribbean ethnicity in your A&E department. Likewise, you've probably done an ECG on an Afro-Caribbean individual like Glenfresh. Look at the voltages. Are those big voltages, small voltages? Yeah, that's true. But what do you think about for example, in the inferior leagues? What do we make about these voltages? Are these big voltages for an athlete or for a young, fit person? So these are quite small. So the voltages are very small. So this is a very subtle finding and can almost be missed because we're so worried about the T-wave inversion. But a young fit person will have large QRS voltages, and this ECG is strongly suggestive of ARVC, when you get T-wave inversions in the right three-quarter units. What about the chap next to him, his mate, the boxer? Normal or abnormal? Anyone for abnormal? Hands up for abnormal? These are all asymptomatic, no family history. Just come for a routine ECG. Call the cardiology branch. So normal, you had some chance to say normal or abnormal? Abnormal. So this is a normal ECG in an Afro-Caribbean athlete. This ECG is seen in 20% of Afro-Caribbean athletes. And the reason it's normal is there's T-wave inversions only up to V4. It does not pass V4. Secondly, the T-wave inversion is preceded by this convex ST elevation. This is classical for an Afro-Caribbean athletic ECG. And as compared to the other ECG, look at the QRS voltages, for example here, in V5 compared to that, or in any of the other leads. Look at the differences. And that tells you that this is the fact that they've got large QRS voltages and voltage criteria for ventricular hypertrophy. That's a normal finding in an athlete. So all these features support physiological ECG pattern in an athlete. We're starting to see early on that this can be ECG screening can be tricky. It's not strict black and white. What about the chap at the bottom, the last one, the footballer? Is that normal or abnormal? From what I've told you today.
The T-wave inversion goes beyond V4. So.
Fantastic. Even though he's got big voltages, T-wave inversion is going into V5 and V6. And this is never a normal ECG and should always be investigated. This athlete had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So it just goes to show that even in one athletic cohort, males only, and one ECG pattern, T-wave inversions, there can be such overlap between normal and abnormal.
So is the Afro-Caribbean myocardium just more adaptable to exercise, so it changes more readily?
They have more left ventricular hypertrophy, which might explain some of these changes. But we still, today, despite research, we do not know why they get this ECG pattern. We just see it so often, and we don't know why they get it.
So if you saw that ECG, you would be very confident not to send them for an echo?
Yeah, and you'll be protected by the guidelines, which I'll come to without coming to that. But you see, that's the problem. Many people would not be comfortable in leaving someone like that alone. I guarantee you, if this guy comes to an A&E department, you may end up with some aspirin and clopidogrel. This one, possibly. In some places, he may get aspirin, maybe not clopidogrel.
Just throw it out there. You had a patient who was, say, 44.
Yeah.
They probably exercised, the Afro-Caribbean exercise probably twice a week.
Yeah.
And they still came with that sort of weight, more volume.
You probably invest. This is in young. When I say young, it's, arbitrarily the cutoff is 35 years.
Okay.
I'm not saying there's no difference between a 34 and a 36-year-old, but by that I mean generally young. And generally, this is in competitive athletes, young, really push themselves.
So you train nearly every day.
Absolutely, at least more than 6 hours a week. I think that's really important.
Okay.
So recreation athletes, you'll see this because they go to the gym, they really push themselves. You will see this. And I said it's not straightforward. I guarantee you, most cardiologists will investigate that because they're just not used to seeing that ECG pattern. It's scary. You see such T-wave inversions. You start thinking it's something going. There might be something going on. And it just shows the problem with ECGs. One of the problems with ECG screening is the overlap between normal and abnormal. So despite the success of the ECG screening program in Italy, one of the concerns of the ECG as a screening test relates to these false positive ECGs. Whilst you can't put a monetary value on a life saved, the workload and costs of further investigations, such as the ones below, and I've already mentioned some of these this morning, you can't really ignore the costs of those. Using conventional ECG guidelines, the ECGs are normally in up to 25% of athletes. You're having a screening program where 1 in 4 people needs to go and have a further test. That's just not practical, achievable, and sustainable. So this limitation of ECG screening has resulted in the development of ECG interpretation criteria to guide physicians involved in the cardiovascular evaluation of young athletes. In 2010, I'm sure you get these on your pen drive. In 2010, the European Society of Cardiology provided their recommendations. They divided ECG changes into those changes that are training related, so physiological changes, which include things like sinus bradycardia, incomplete right bundle branch block, early repolarization, and divided those from the group 2, training unrelated changes, which may be pathological and warrant further investigations. In 2013, the Seattle criteria were published and incorporated 2 important amendments to the original criteria. Firstly, they incorporated the impact of ethnicity on the athlete's ECG, as we've already spoken about. And secondly, they designated less conservative criteria for an abnormal QT interval. Finally, in 2014, the refined ECG criteria were published, which provided a list of extra electrical anomalies in the yellow circle. So they had a green, yellow, red system where ECG changes in the green box, green circle, don't warrant any further investigation. These are normal changes. Those in the red box should always be considered abnormal and warrant further investigations. Whereas these electrical anomalies in the yellow box, if present in isolation, should not warrant further investigation. Of course, it's really important to note that all these ECG changes we're talking about in asymptomatic athletes. As soon as there's symptoms or a family history, it doesn't matter what the ECG is, you have to investigate them further. You can't ignore those. So by changing and improving our understanding of the ECG in athletes, the false positive, as I said, 25% had an abnormal ECG rate. We've reduced that down to 5% over the last 5 years, the last 6 years, and therefore improved specificity. Importantly, by reducing the number of abnormal ECGs, we have not compromised the ability to detect athletes at risk. So that's really important. We've reduced the number of abnormal ECGs, but we're not missing anyone out with disease. So I think that's really important. And it's really changed ECG screening programs worldwide. How reliable is the ECG as a screening test? How often have you looked at an ECG and shown it to one of your colleagues who have disagreed? Does that happen often? You're not sure, no one's sure. I mean, we've seen that in the audience today. And it's common, it happens within cardiologists as well. We never agree on the ECG. I think that can be a problem. So this is stuff from my research which is yet to be published, but I was looking at agreement in interpretation of the ECG, whether normal or abnormal amongst cardiologists. So this is a study of 400 ECGs by 10, interpretation of 400 ECGs by 10 cardiologists, 5 who are experienced at screening athletes and 5 cardiologists who don't screen athletes routinely. And it showed some really important findings which has impact on screening. Firstly, cardiologists who are experienced in screening are more likely to agree on what's a normal and what's an abnormal ECG compared to less experienced cardiologists. However, even amongst experienced cardiologists who see athletes routinely, there is only moderate agreement. So this is something called a Kappa coefficient. Without boring you, it's a measure of agreement. And it shows that even amongst experienced cardiologists, you will never get more than moderate agreement for what's a normal and what's an abnormal ECG. Is that good, bad, moderate agreement? It's not great, is it? You'll be surprised may not be surprised to hear that mammography, which is, mammography and also sort of cervical smears, which are screening tests for well accepted, established screening programs in the UK, also have moderate agreement amongst radiologists and amongst pathologists. So it does show that it's moderate agreement, but it's interesting that mammography is accepted by everyone, but yet when radiologists look at it, there's only moderate agreement. And likewise, when pathologists are looking at cervical smears under the microscope, there's only moderate agreement. So it does definitely raise some important points. Finally, for a screening test to be facilitated, there should be agreement at policy level. From a scientific view, both the American Heart Association and the European Society of Cardiology recommend ECG screening of athletes on ethical, legal, and medical grounds. The American Heart Association recommends ECG screening with history, that's a personal and family history, and physical examination, whereas the European Society of Cardiology recommends the routine inclusion of the 12-lead ECG based on the evidence of the success in Italy. The American model is cheap and certainly much more pragmatic, but it really lacks sensitivity because in 80% of cases, the athlete will be asymptomatic with the condition. So you're going to miss a lot of people because the majority of athletes with these conditions will never have a symptom or a family history. Within the United Kingdom, screening is practiced amongst sort of organizations and athletes participating at the highest level of sport, such as the FA, English Institute of Sport, Sky Cycling, and the Lawn Tennis Association. In this regard, grassroots sport, recreational athletes, and high school athletes are relatively neglected. As with any screening test or any intervention, the benefits should be achieved at a reasonable cost. It's difficult to place a value on a life saved, but it's still definitely important to consider the cost. A lot of my research in my time was spent looking at the cost implications of screening athletes within the United Kingdom. So over a 4-year period, we screened nearly 5,000 young athletes as a mandatory requirement of the sporting organisations across the United Kingdom. This is all across the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland and Wales. Overall, 26 different sporting disciplines were represented. All athletes underwent personal and family history questionnaire, physical examination, and a 12-lead ECG, which was interpreted with the original ECG recommendations. Athletes with abnormal screening tests underwent further investigations at hospitals in their local vicinity and were followed up for a period of 2 years. We calculated what the workload and cost implications of these further tests, and also looked at the impact had we used the newer ECG interpretation guidelines. Out of these 4,900 athletes, 15 athletes, with a prevalence of 0.3%, which is consistent in most studies, were diagnosed with a condition associated with sudden cardiac death, so life-threatening conditions. The cost by using the original EAC recommendations was about $110 per athlete and just under $36,000 per serious life-threatening condition identified. However, had we used the newer criteria, the refined criteria, this cost would have been $87 per person and just under $29,000 per diagnosis made, which is a 21% cost reduction. Importantly, with this cost reduction, we did not compromise the ability to detect these athletes. So all 15 athletes would have been diagnosed by all 3 criteria. So you're reducing cost but not missing the ability to detect people. So it's not, you're not saving costs and missing people. I think that's really important. Such savings would allow us to potentially screen another 2,000 athletes or even purchase another 100 defibrillators. So, I mean, what's your initial opinion on cost? $87 per person to undergo screening. A lot, little? I would agree. So it's about, this was before Brexit, so the pound was a lot stronger. So it worked out, this study was before Brexit, so it worked out to approximately £57 per person. It was published in American Journal, so I had to put it indoors. But £57 per person, it's not much. I know the cost per diagnosis is high, but as I was saying, these people the majority of athletes die under the age of 18. So you look, and should while they're diagnosed, there's a strong possibility they would live a full life expectancy. So you think of the decades of years of life years lost. It does put things into context. But there you go. I mean, for some organizations, this might be too much. But certainly, these findings will be welcomed by organizations that do mandate ECG screening of the athletes, and may potentially allow less financially endowed sporting organizations to screen their athletes. Finally, it's important we know who we should screen with an ECG, which population should be screened with an ECG. It's well established for breast cancer, and I don't know the specific age group, but there is a specific age of women who should be screened. Likewise, for cervical cancer, there's a certain stage when they should be screened. And for AAAs, for example, only men get screened above a certain age. So there have been established screening populations for those conditions. As I've already mentioned, for screening athletes with ECG, it's been limited to those athletes competing at the highest level of sport. The ethics of such practice has been questioned, especially in light of recent evidence that from America, from France, and from Denmark, that actually recreational athletes and young individuals in the general population may be at higher risk of sudden cardiac death, comparable to the risk in athletes, and therefore excluding these individuals from screening may be a major ethical issue. Obviously, this opens up a can of worms if you have to screen every single person, but there are some valid points to that. So to conclude, ECG screening in young athletes remains controversial, largely because we do not have a randomized controlled trial showing that screening works. And we probably will never have one. for a screening, an ideal screening test is one that would detect everyone with cardiac disease and correctly reassure everyone who does not have the disease. The ECG does not meet that criteria, but then again, neither does any other screening test we have in the NHS. I think it's really important that athletes want to be screened. And with a better understanding of ECG patterns in athletes, which have reduced the number of abnormal ECGs that need further tests, and therefore reduced the costs, more and more sporting organizations now screen their athletes. So watch this space, I would say. It's a very topical thing. And you're going to hear more and more about it, I would think, over the next few years, especially because the deaths in athletes are so visible. They're afforded such high visibility that even though they're rare, they do make headlines. So I'm sure this will not be the first or the last time you'll probably hear about ECG screening in athletes. That's all. I'm happy to take any questions.
Why is there so much limitations about the randomized control trial?
Why is it?
Limitation of the randomized control trial.
So for a randomized control, so for example in Italy where ECG screening is mandatory by law, you can't do a randomized control trial because it's law that every athlete should be screened. So you can't subject athletes, one group of athletes you get screened and one group of athletes you don't get screened. You can't do that because it's mandatory by law in Italy. Secondly, the event rate is very low, and the number of individuals in this the prevalence of these conditions are low. So to take a really long-term study, of probably 50, 60 years, if you have to do a randomized control trial. But as I said, I never think we'll get a randomized control trial of screening athletes. It'll never happen because of the low event rate and the low prevalence of these conditions. So we have to do with what we have, which is a large cohort study. I think that's the best evidence we have.